Is Jaden Springer the player you guys should be keeping an eye on ahead of the trade block, whether it be the trade deadline or possibly a trade before the NBA season starts? Because you know Brad Stevens, he does what he wants. And honestly, I have never doubted a move that Brad Stevens has made just yet. So if he decides to end up trading away Jaden Springer, you guys can almost guarantee what we're going to receive is maybe a lot better. But I want to talk about possibly trading Jaden Springer away and why I think that, and possibly bring up two possible trade targets that the Celtics could acquire for Springer. So before we jump into that, guys, I don't think you actually understand how close we are to the NBA season. And I know a lot of you guys have been soaking in the football season, including myself, cracking a couple of beers, enjoying your apple cider, but football season is genuinely right around the corner. To the point where Marshall Green's already talking shit in the office about taking down the Boston Celtics. If you're ready for Boston Celtics basketball, go on ahead and hit that like button for me. So Springer has a really interesting role with the Boston Celtics. We knew that he was picked up at the trade deadline last year in February, and then he just really didn't know what his role was on the Boston Celtics in the 17 games that he did end up playing. You got to think a lot of that was primarily garbage time, and when we got to see Jaden Springer and his role with the Celtics here, but we know that Springer has that guard tendency to be a good two-way player. But so far, when you're looking at him in the 4 months he did play for the Boston Celtics, you're really only seeing him thrive on the defensive side of the ball, not really seeing what he can do on the offense just yet. Although he did showcase some of that stuff in Summer League, which I'll get to here in just a moment, I do think that Jaden Springer has potential, and you know that Brad Stevens loves a good project, but what Jaden Springer will need to do next week, because that's when training camp starts for the Celtics, is genuinely stick out among very talented players if he wants to earn minutes this upcoming season. Why? Because Jaden Springer technically is getting paid like a player that is averaging more than 7 minutes per game. Jaden Springer is the 8th highest paid player on the Boston Celtics roster, and he's currently entering into his last year of his contract, which the Boston Celtics did end up swallowing when they did decide to trade for him at the NBA trade deadline. Look, I'm going to tell you who he's actually making more money than on the Boston Celtics roster in just one moment, but I want to let you guys know there is an ad break coming up here, so just stick around for that, and then I'm going to tell you who Jaden Springer is earning more than on the Celtics roster, because it actually kind of surprised me. Out of those 5 players on the Boston Celtics roster, he makes more than Neemias Queta, Luke Cornett, Sam Hauser, Xavier Tillman, and then obviously Baylor Shireman because he's making rookie money. Now, keep in mind, this is before Sam Hauser's new contract does kick in. So this next year, Sam Hauser is still making $2 million. Sam Hauser is a huge piece for the Celtics bench. Coming off the bench and scoring as many threes as he does, coming off the bench and locking up Luka Doncic in the NBA Finals, deserves more than what Jaden Springer is being paid. However, like I said, they absorbed this contract when Philly traded him to Boston. So this wasn't the contract that Brad Stevens originally gave him. But you know that Jaden Springer has not had a bigger role than these top 4 players in the last year. In fact, he had the 4th lowest minutes on the Boston Celtics last year. 7.6 minutes per game is what he averaged through 17 games. And guess what? Dalano Banton, traded. Lamar Stevens, traded. J.D. Davison, a two-way player. But yet Jaden Springer is being paid more than 5 Celtics right now on the roster, but he's not playing like it. And that's not to say he can't. I'm just showing you guys as to what is really at stake here if he does get traded away. And there is opportunity for him to improve. He did play with the Summer League team this past summer, and he did play only 1 game, but in that game, he completely separated himself from NBA players and G League players that are trying to make an NBA roster. What he did in that 1 game during Summer League allowed him to not play in Summer League anymore. And that's the goal when you're somebody like Springer. When you have played in the NBA, you don't want to be in Summer League, only if you just want to get a couple more reps. But that's what Jaime Jaquez Jr. did with the Miami Heat. So knowing that Springer's got 23 points in his bag gives me hope that he can end up being a good two-way player. But so far, what we've seen from Springer in the Boston Celtics uniform in 17 games is I'm just seeing more of a defensive-minded type of guard. And that's okay. You know, Brad Stevens loves that. That's how Derek White was just brilliant last year. That's how Drew Holiday was. And then they tagged on that offensive aspect. That's what Springer needs to do. And we do know that Brad Stevens may not want to trade him away because he likes to create these players, these monsters that just dominate, and then have GM saying, who the hell is that player? And he's like, oh yeah, remember that guy that was really good on defense, not so much on offense? I did that. But I can also see Brad Stevens really making sure the Celtics have enough money in their bag to be able to be contenders again. And with a $4 million salary, Jaden Springer could be taking some of that could be necessary to go get somebody else. So before I jump into who they possibly could go out and get for Jaden Springer, do you guys think Boston should trade Jaden? Let me know in the comment section down below. I definitely see both sides of the coin here of getting rid of his salary and possibly getting another role player, maybe even an older guy, because you got to think Springer is also the second youngest player on the team. He's only 21 years old. Jordan Walsh is the only player younger than him. So type T for trade, type K for keep on what you think the Celtics should do with Jaden Springer. And I'm going to tell you guys about how you can have happy bellies and happy wallets with Factor Meals. They are our sponsor here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. But let me tell you, Factor Meals has completely turned my world upside down for the better. I've been trying to lose a little bit of weight, all good. Summer's over now, but I don't want to get husky in the winter. So I try to meet my wellness goals, but I don't really have time for that most of the time. I'm a very social butterfly. I try to do good at my job. So I don't have time to make these beautiful meals that you see on your screen. And that's what's the best part. They're actually handcrafted by chefs and then delivered to your front door, and they're ready. In less than 2 minutes, you get exactly what is on your screen for none of the prep, none of the mess, and none of the time it takes to make these beautiful meals. And with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you're always going to find something that fits your diet, whether it be trying to lose some weight with some Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. I haven't tried keto yet, but I've heard many people say that it works for them. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are what I always go to. I don't like to eat red meat, so the fact that I have several options to get my own protein intake in is always a plus for me. So if you guys want to go on ahead and get started, let me let you in on a little secret here. This is good for the whole family. Do you know how hard it is to find a meal that everybody in your family likes? I'm telling you, there is something for everybody, even little Susie, who's a picky eater and loves chicken fingers wherever they go. Head to factormeals.com/chatsports50. Use code chatsports50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code chatsports50 at factormeals.com/chatsports50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is still active. Let's look at the top trade targets for Jaden Springer, because there are still a couple of players that the Boston Celtics could afford and may want to make this call. Once again, maybe not before the season, but definitely in February by that trade deadline. You're not going to know where people are at in terms of injury, and you're definitely not going to know where they're at in the standings. You hope on top, but you never know. So I'm going to bring up another trade target that I've talked about before on this channel. Let's talk about Torrey Craig. Meg the Stallions, quote-unquote, new man. Torrey Craig, currently playing for the Chicago Bulls, but he's got the same skill set as a Jaden Springer in terms when it comes to that shooting guard position. But Torrey Craig is a more well-rounded basketball player. As of right now, he's been doing great work for the Chicago Bulls, but the Bulls really aren't where they need to be winners. And if you add somebody like Torrey Craig, a guy that you know is not going to be a starter for the Boston Celtics, but could maybe work his way up from that third rotation to that second rotation with Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and others, it could be a beneficial move for the Boston Celtics. And here's what's great about somebody like Torrey Craig. It's player for player. That's it. It's a player for player trade. They basically had the similar salaries when it comes to trading these two guys, but also you got to look at what the Bulls could receive with this. They have a point guard in Kobe White, a very young, scrappy, tenacious guard, and they just lost Alex Caruso, one of their top defenders. You could now put a shooting guard in Jaden Springer side by side with Kobe White, add a little defense in that mix. He doesn't have to be as strong as an offensive player as he would in the Celtics, and really help out the Chicago Bulls and Kobe White. Hopefully win some ball games next year while we have Torrey Craig coming off our bench. But if you guys are just tired of small ball and you really want to get a big guy in the middle, let's talk about Dwight Powell, shall we? Because he could be the next trade target for the Boston Celtics. And I know it's a little bit frisky because we just played the Mavericks in the NBA Finals, but I asked Coop, who's the host here at Mavericks Day by Chat Sports. I was like, you want Springer? He's like, yeah, all right. Who we have to give away? And I said Dwight Powell. Why? Because you already know they're trying to add injury insurance for Kristaps Porzingis, even though they already did re-sign Neemias Queta, Luke Cornett, and Xavier Tillman. Dwight Powell had just played recently for a championship team, so he can jump right into a championship-level team like the Boston Celtics and perform. And the beauty of it, they both make $4 million. Player for player trade number 2. You're going to get Dwight Powell in Boston, a veteran. He's definitely got some miles on him, but that's okay. And then you get Jaden Springer to go to the Dallas Mavericks. The only thing that would kind of suck is that if you do happen to end up playing them again in the NBA Finals, it'd be a little bit awkward. But we'll deal with that in May, in June, if we ever see the Mavericks again. But that's trade number 2. The third move that you could possibly do with Jaden Springer that don't put it past Brad Stevens is just a cost-cutting move. Is just letting go of the $4 million salary and allowing the Boston Celtics to maybe stop flirting with that luxury tax bill, because it's giving me heart palpitations about how the hell they're supposed to afford all these players. And you could end up saving $7.2 million by just making a cost-cutting move of Jaden Springer. And that's going to go a long way, because right now the Celtics are in dangerous territory of flirting with the second apron. That's going to cost them draft penalties and the luxury tax line. All right, so if you do end up just saying goodbye to Jaden Springer and allowing that roster spot to be open for a player like Lonnie Walker, it could be huge in terms of the Celtics' pocket. But let me ask you this, because this is why we have this channel, right? It's because I talk, you guys talk, and then we talk about it. So what move would you like to make here with Jaden Springer? And of course, you can always let me know if you see the potential and the upside of keeping him around, like we know Brad Stevens probably does. That's why he traded for him by the deadline. Would you rather see Torrey Craig on the Boston Celtics type TC? Would you rather see Dwight Powell on the Boston Celtics type DP, not for Dr. Pepper, although I love it, and then type CC for you just rather see a cost-cutting move? You don't want the Boston Celtics to have any more penalties, and they're already setting themselves up for, because they're a really, really expensive roster. Choose these 3 or comment down below and let me know why you guys think Jaden Springer could end up having a big role for the Boston Celtics this upcoming year. And as always, if you have not been told already, Boston Celtics basketball is this close to being back, and I want to see how excited you guys are for the NBA reigning champs to come back and do it again. Go on ahead and like this video for me.